Rain drummed against the windows of Rodriguez Construction's modest office in downtown Miami, like bullets against glass. Each drop seemed to echo the desperation that filled the cramped conference room where Camila Rodriguez sat watching her. Father paced like a caged animal. 24, she had seen Roberto Rodriguez face many challenges in his 30 years of running the family business. But never like this. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting harsh shadows across. Stacks of unpaid invoices and foreclosure notices that covered every surface. Roberto's usually pristine appearance was disheveled, his shirt wrinkled, his graying hair uncombed, and his weathered hands shaking as he clutched yet another rejection letter from the bank. 3 generations, Mia, Roberto whispered, his voice cracking with exhaustion. 3 generations of Rodriguez men built this company from nothing. Your grandfather started with just a hammer and a dream, and now he gestured helplessly at the chaos surrounding them. Now we're going to lose everything because I trusted the wrong people. Camila's heart ached, watching the man who had always been her hero crumble before her eyes. The Ocean View Resort project was supposed to be their salvation, a massive luxury development that would have secured their future for decades. Instead, when the client vanished with their advance payment, it became their death sentence. There has to be another way, Papa, Camila said softly, though her voice carried little conviction. They had explored every option over the past 4 months, every bank, every investor, every possible partnership. Miami's construction industry was brutal. And without the liquidity to complete their current projects, Rodriguez's construction was finished. Roberto stopped pacing and looked at his daughter with eyes that held a mixture of love and something dangerously close to calculation. Actually, there might be one option left, he said slowly, his voice taking on a tone that made Camila's stomach drop. Before she could ask what he meant, the office door opened with a soft click. Elena Martinez stepped inside, her designer heels clicking against the worn linoleum floor. At 45, Elena possessed the kind of predatory elegance that made Camila instantly uncomfortable. Her perfectly styled black hair, expensive suit, and calculating smile suggested someone who viewed people as chess pieces rather than human beings. Roberto, Elena said, her voice smooth as silk. I've spoken with my client. Sebastian Kane is willing to meet with you both tomorrow afternoon. The name hit Camila like a physical blow. Everyone in Miami's business circles knew Sebastian Kane, the 29-year-old tech mogul who had built Kane Industries from a college startup into a global empire worth billions. His face graced magazine covers regularly, but he was known more for his ruthless business tactics than his undeniable good looks. What would Sebastian Kane want with a failing construction company? Camila asked, though she had a sinking feeling she already knew the answer. Elena's smile sharpened. Not the company, Quarita. You. The price of salvation, the words hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Camila shot to her feet, her chair scraping against the floor with a sound like nails on a chalkboard. Excuse me? Roberto couldn't meet her eyes, his face flushed with shame. Camila, just listen. Listen to what? Her voice rose with disbelief and growing anger. Are you seriously suggesting what I think you're suggesting? This isn't the 19th century, Papa. You can't just arrange marriages like business deals. Elena stepped forward, her expression deceptively sympathetic. I understand this sounds archaic, Camila, but it's more common than you might think in certain circles. Sebastian needs a wife, specifically, a wife from a respectable family with traditional values to secure a major business deal in Singapore. The investors there are extremely conservative and prefer working with married men who demonstrate family stability. And what exactly would I get out of this arrangement besides being treated like cattle? Camila shot back, crossing her arms. Defensively, your family's survival, Elena replied bluntly. The contract would be for 3 years. Sebastian would pay off all of Rodriguez Construction's debts, to provide working capital for new projects, and ensure your brother Diego can finish medical school without financial stress. After 3 years, you'd receive a divorce settlement of $10 million. $10 million. Ow! Enough money to start her own architectural firm. To never worry about financial security again. To give Diego the future he deserved. But the price? I need to think about this, Camila said weakly. The meeting is tomorrow at 2 p.m., Alina continued, pressing her advantage. Kane Industries headquarters, penthouse level. Sebastian is flying to Tokyo tomorrow night, so this is your only opportunity. After Alina left, Camila and Roberto sat in heavy silence. The rain had stopped, but the office felt colder somehow, as if Alina had sucked all the warmth from the room with her departure. I can't ask you to do this, Roberto finally said, his voice barely above a whisper. But you are asking, Camila replied quietly. By bringing Alina here, by even entertaining this insane idea you're asking? Roberto's shoulders slumped in defeat. Your brother called yesterday. He's struggling to pay for his clinical rotations. And Mrs. Vega from the apartment. Complex. She needs the repairs we promised her 6 months ago, but we can't afford the materials. Every day we delay, more people suffer because of my failures. Camila closed her eyes, feeling the weight of her family's expectations and her own moral compass warring inside her chest. She thought about Diego, so passionate about his medical studies, working 3 part-time jobs just to make ends meet. She thought about their employees, good people with families who depended on Rodriguez. Construction for their livelihoods. Meeting the Ice King the next afternoon. Camila stood before the gleaming tower that housed Kane Industries, feeling like David facing Goliath. The building stretched 60 floors into the Miami sky, all glass and steel and corporate power. She wore her best black dress suit, armor for the battle ahead, though she wasn't sure if she was the warrior or the prize. Being fought over, the elevator ride to the penthouse felt like ascending to another world. Each floor that passed represented a level of wealth and influence so far beyond her experience that she felt dizzy. When the doors finally opened, she stepped into what looked more like a modern art museum than an office. Floor-dash, 2 ceiling windows offered a breathtaking view of Biscayne Bay, while expensive sculptures and paintings created an atmosphere of intimidating sophistication. And there, standing with his back to her as he gazed out at the city below, was Sebastian Kane himself. He turned as she entered, and Camila felt her breath catch in her throat. Magazine photos hadn't captured the full impact of his presence. Sebastian was tall, easily 6'2", with dark hair that looked like he'd been running his hands through it and piercing green. Eyes that seemed to see straight through her. His charcoal suit was perfectly tailored, emphasizing his athletic build. But it was his expression that made her knees weak, cold, calculating, and completely unreadable. Miss Rodriguez, he said, his voice deep and controlled. He didn't offer. His hand didn't smile, barely acknowledged her presence beyond the basic greeting. Please sit. Camila remained standing, her chin lifted defiantly. I prefer to stand, thank you. Something flickered in those green eyes. Surprise, perhaps. Or amusement. Most people probably did exactly what Sebastian Kane told them to do. As you wish, he said, moving to stand behind his massive desk. I assume Alina explained the terms of the arrangement. The arrangement, Camila repeated, her voice dripping with disdain. Is that what we're calling it? Sebastian's expression didn't change, but she noticed a slight tightening around his eyes. I don't believe in sugarcoating business transactions, Miss Rodriguez. This is a contract, nothing more. You marry me, appear at necessary social functions, and in exchange, your family receives the financial support they need to survive. And what do you get out of this? Camila asked, crossing her arms. Access, he replied brutally. My company is expanding into Asian markets that value traditional family structures. A wife from an established family opens doors that money alone cannot. His honesty was jarring, but Camila found herself almost respecting it. At least he wasn't pretending this was anything other than what it was, a cold business transaction. The contract would be for 3 years, Sebastian continued, pulling out a thick folder. You would live in my penthouse, but maintain your own private space. No interference in each other's personal lives. No expectations of intimacy. After 3 years, we divorce amicably, and you receive a settlement of $10 million. $10 million. The number hit her again, representing more money than she could earn in several lifetimes as an architect. I want to see the contract, she said. Sebastian slid the folder across his desk. Camila spent the next hour reading every clause, every condition, every escape route. It was thorough, she had to admit. Both parties' rights and responsibilities were clearly defined, with ironclad protections for both of them. This clause here, she said, pointing to a section near the end, says the contract can be terminated early if either party violates the terms. What constitutes a violation? Anything that brings public scandal or embarrassment to either party, Sebastian replied. Adultery, criminal behavior, public intoxication, that sort of thing. Camila nodded, then looked up at him. I have some conditions of my own, Sebastian raised an eyebrow, such as, I want my brother's medical education fully funded through his residency program. I want to guarantee that Rodriguez Construction remains under my family's control, with you only as a silent financial partner, and I want the right to pursue my own architectural career without interference. Done, Sebastian said without hesitation. His quick agreement surprised her. She'd expected to fight for every concession. Is there anything else? She asked. Shamil studied this man who was about to become her husband in name only. Just one thing. I don't want any pretense between us. This is a business deal. I won't pretend to love you, and I don't expect you to pretend to love me. Perfect, Sebastian said, and for the first time, she saw what might have been approval in his expression. I prefer honesty in all my business dealings. She signed the contract. Camila wondered if she was making the biggest mistake of her life. But when she thought about Diego, about her father, about the legacy of her family, she knew she had. No choice. The decision was made. In 2 weeks, she would become Mrs. Sebastian Kane. The wedding performance 2 weeks later. Camila stood in the bridal suite of Miami's most exclusive hotel, staring at her reflection in an ornate mirror. The wedding dress was stunning. Alina had insisted on designer everything to maintain appearances, but it felt like a costume for a role she never wanted to play. You look beautiful, Mia, Roberto said from behind her, his voice thick with emotion and guilt. Do I? Camila asked, not expecting an answer. She looked like a bride, certainly, but she felt like an actress preparing for the performance of her lifetime. The ceremony was a blur of faces she didn't recognize, reporters capturing every moment for the society pages and vows that felt like they were being spoken by someone else. Sebastian looked devastatingly handsome in his black tuxedo, playing the part of devoted groom with convincing perfection. When the officiant announced, "You may kiss the bride," Sebastian stepped closer, his hands gentle on her face as he pressed his lips to hers. The kiss was brief, appropriate, and completely devoid of emotion. Exactly what she had expected. Yet somehow it sent an unexpected shock through her system. Leaving her more confused than satisfied, the reception felt more like a corporate networking event than a wedding celebration. Camila smiled until her face hurt, accepted congratulations from people she'd never met, and danced with her new husband in front of cameras that captured every moment for posterity. You're doing well, Sebastian murmured, as they swayed to the music, his hand firm at her waist. Very convincing. I'm a quick learner, she replied, looking up into those unreadable green eyes. We'll need to maintain this act for 3 years. Indeed, he said. I hope you're prepared for that. That night, in the penthouse that was now her home, Camila stood in the master bedroom doorway, having second thoughts. The space was beautiful but cold, like a luxury hotel suite. Rather than a place where people lived and loved, Sebastian had shown her to her own room. Down the hall, a beautiful suite, with its own sitting area and bathroom, but for some reason, she found herself lingering at the threshold of his space, having second thoughts. Sebastian asked. He had loosened his tie, but was still fully dressed, standing by the window with a glass of whiskey in his hand. No, Camila said, though she wasn't sure that was true. It's just, this is really happening, isn't it? It's a contract, Camila, he said, using her first name for the first time. Nothing more, nothing less. 3 years we'll both be exactly where we want to be. She nodded, though something in her chest tightened at his words. Good night, Sebastian. Good night, Mrs. Kane. As she closed the door to her own suite, Camila caught a glimpse of herself in the mirror. Mrs. Kane. For the next 3 years, that's who she would be. The question was, who would she be when it was all over? 3 months into their marriage, Camila had established a routine that kept her sanity intact within the golden cage of Sebastian's penthouse. She woke at sunrise, worked out in his state-of-the-art gym, spent mornings at a local community center teaching architecture to underprivileged kids, and afternoons helping her father rebuild Rodriguez construction with their newfound financial stability. The penthouse itself was a masterpiece of modern design. All clean lines, expensive materials, and stunning views of Miami's skyline. But it felt more like a luxury prison than a home. Everything was perfect, untouchable, sterile. Camila found herself deliberately leaving small traces of her presence throughout the space. A coffee mug on the marble counter, one of her architecture books on the glass coffee table, her favorite throw blanket draped over the designer sofa. If Sebastian noticed these tiny rebellions against his perfectly ordered world, he never mentioned them. "Good morning, Mrs. Kane," greeted Carmen, the housekeeper, as Camila padded into the kitchen in her pajamas and fuzzy slippers. The older woman had worked for Sebastian for years and treated Camila with professional courtesy tinged with obvious curiosity. "Morning, Carmen," Camila replied, pouring herself coffee from the machine. "That probably costs more than most people's cars. Has he left already?" Mr. Kane departed at 5 a.m. for his morning run, then went straight to the office, Carmen confirmed. "He mentioned he'll be working late again tonight. Of course he would." In 3 months of marriage, Sebastian seemed to live at his office, returning home only to sleep and change clothes. They had shared perhaps a dozen conversations, most about scheduling or public appearances. Camila said impulsively, "What was he like before? I mean, before the marriage?" The housekeeper paused in her cleaning, considering the question carefully. "Mr. Kane has always been very focused on his work, very disciplined." She hesitated, then added quietly, "But he used to smile sometimes. Not often, but sometimes. Usually when he spoke with his sister in London." This was news to Camila. "He has a sister, Miss Natalie? She's a doctor there? They don't talk as much as they used to?" Carmen's expression suggested she had said more than she intended. "I should get back to work." That afternoon, while reviewing construction plans with her father, Camila found herself thinking about Sebastian's mysterious sister. Rodriguez Construction was slowly stabilizing thanks to Kane Industries' backing, but the process required constant attention. "You seem distracted, Mia," Roberto observed, removing his reading glasses. "Everything all right at home?" Home. The word felt strange applied to the penthouse. "Everything's fine, Papa. Just adjusting." Roberto's face creased with the guilt he'd carried since the wedding. "Shh. Camila, I know this wasn't what you wanted. If there had been any other way." "There wasn't," she said firmly. "We both know that. And it's not as bad as I expected. Sebastian keeps his distance. I keep mine. Working." But even as she said it, something in her chest felt hollow. She had expected to feel trapped, suffocated by the arrangement. Instead, she felt strangely invisible, as if she were living parallel to Sebastian rather than with him. Cracks in the armor. That evening, Camila was curled up on the couch, reading when she heard Sebastian's key in the lock. She glanced at the clock, only 9 p.m. early for him. "Evening," she called without looking up from her book. "Evening," came his dry response. She heard his footsteps cross the marble floor and expected him to disappear into his office as usual. Instead, the footsteps stopped. "You're reading in the dark again," Sebastian said. Camila looked up, surprised to find him standing in the living room doorway. He had loosened his tie and rolled up his sleeves, looking less like the Ice King of business and more like an exhausted man. "The lamp gives enough light," she said, though she realized the room was quite dim. Sebastian moved to the wall panel and adjusted the lighting to a warmer, brighter setting. "You'll strain your eyes." The simple gesture of concern caught her off guard. "Thank you." He nodded and turned to leave, then paused. "What are you reading?" Camila held up the book. A thriller with an embarrassingly dramatic cover. "Don't judge." "Me. I have terrible taste in entertainment." "I wasn't going to judge," Sebastian said, and she could swear she saw the corner of his mouth twitch. Are they any good? They're ridiculous and completely unrealistic and absolutely addictive, she admitted, warming to the conversation. This one's about a fake marriage that turns into real love. It's very original, as you can imagine. This time Sebastian definitely almost smiled. Ironic choice, given our circumstances. That's what I thought, Camila said. Though I have to say, the male lead is much more emotionally available than most billionaire CEOs I know. Most? Sebastian raised an eyebrow. How many billionaire CEOs do you know? Just one, she admitted. But you're setting a pretty high bar for emotional unavailability. Something shifted in Sebastian's expression, a crack in his usually controlled facade. I should let you get back to your reading. Could stay, Camila said impulsively. I mean, this is your living room too. Sebastian hesitated, and for a moment she thought he might actually accept. Then his wall snapped back into place. Have work to finish. Good night, Camila. Good night, she replied, watching him disappear down the hallway. The next few weeks brought a subtle shift in their dynamic. Sebastian began coming home earlier, sometimes joining her for dinner when their schedules aligned. Their conversations remained surface level, current events, business matters, observations about the city, but they were conversations, nonetheless. Camila found herself looking forward to these interactions more than she cared to admit. Sebastian was intelligent, well-informed, occasionally showed flashes of dry humor that caught her completely off guard. He was also maddeningly controlled, never revealing anything about his thoughts or feelings beyond the immediate topic. At hand, you're like a vault, she told him one evening as they shared takeout on the balcony. Do you ever just let your guard down? Sebastian paused, with his chopsticks halfway to his mouth. Let my guard down. How? Stop managing every word, every expression, every response. Do you ever just say what you're thinking without calculating? The consequences? No, he said simply. I don't. But doesn't that get exhausting? Control isn't a limitation, Camila. It's a necessity. She studied his profile against the city lights, noting the tension in his jaw, the careful way he held himself, even in this relaxed setting. That sounds lonely. Sebastian turned to look at her then, something unreadable in his green eyes. Loneliness is a luxury I can't afford. The conversation haunted Camila for days. What had happened to make Sebastian so guarded, so determined, to control every aspect of his existence? She found herself watching him more carefully. Looking for cracks in his armor, she found one a week later. Camila had been fighting a nasty flu all day but pushed through her commitments, not wanting to appear weak. By evening, though, she felt truly awful, dizzy, nauseous, and burning with fever. She made it to the bathroom before collapsing, weak and disoriented to call for help. She wasn't sure how long she lay on the cold marble floor before she heard Sebastian's voice calling her name. The bathroom door opened and suddenly he was kneeling beside her, his usual composure completely shattered. Jesus, Camila, he breathed, his hands incredibly gentle as he felt her forehead. We're burning. I'm fine, she mumbled, trying to sit up and immediately regretting it as the room spun. You're not fine. His voice was sharp with worry. Real worry, not the polite concern of a business partner. I'm calling Dr. Reyes. Please. No, she protested weakly. It's just a fever. I'll be okay. But Sebastian was already lifting her, carrying her to his bed with a tenderness that made her chest tight. He settled her against the pillows, then disappeared briefly before returning with a cool cloth and water. The doctor is on her way, he said, sitting on the edge of the bed. The careful distance they usually maintained was forgotten as he gently placed the cloth on her forehead. You don't have to stay, Camila whispered, though part of her desperately wanted him to. I'm not going anywhere, Sebastian said firmly, and he didn't. For the next 4 days, Sebastian barely left her side. He worked from his laptop in the chair, beside the bed, checking her temperature regularly and making sure she took her medication. When she woke from fever dreams, he was there. When she needed water or more blankets, he provided them without being asked. During those quiet hours, Camila began to see glimpses of the man behind the Ice King facade, someone who was gentle, protective, and surprisingly caring when he thought no one was watching. On the fourth day, when her fever finally broke, Camila found herself studying Sebastian as he worked. His platinum hair was mussed from running his hands through it, his usually perfect shirt was wrinkled, and there were dark circles under his eyes from lack of sleep. "You look terrible," she said softly. He looked up with a tired smile, the first genuine smile she had ever seen from him. "Thanks. You're looking much better, though, Sebastian," she said, her voice more serious. "Why did you really stay?" "Don't say obligation." He closed his laptop and leaned back in his chair, studying her face for a long moment. She thought he wouldn't answer. Then, so quietly she almost missed it, he said, because for the first time in years, someone needed me. Not my money, not my connections, not my business expertise. Just me. The admission hung between them, raw and honest, and completely unexpected. Camila felt something shift in her chest, a warmth that had nothing to do with fever and everything. To do with the vulnerable man sitting beside her bed. "Sebastian, you should rest," he said abruptly, the walls slamming back into place. "You'll need your strength. We have the charity gala tomorrow night." Tomorrow? Camila had completely lost track of time during her illness. The children's hospital benefit they had committed to attending months ago. "If you're not well enough, I can make excuses," Sebastian said, his professional mask firmly back in place. "I'll be fine," she said quickly. "We can't miss it." But as Sebastian gathered his things and prepared to leave her room, Camila realized that something fundamental had changed between them. The careful distance they had maintained was cracking, and she wasn't sure either of them would be able to repair it. The next evening, Camila stood before her bedroom mirror, adjusting the deep blue evening gown that Alina had selected for the charity gala. She still felt weak from her illness, but she was determined not to let Sebastian down. The children's hospital benefit was important to both of them, one of the few things they had discovered they genuinely shared. Sebastian appeared. In her doorway, devastatingly handsome in his black tuxedo. "Ready?" he asked, then stopped, his eyes widening slightly as he took in her appearance. "You look beautiful," the compliment, simple as it was, sent heat rushing through her veins. "Thank you. You clean up pretty well yourself." For a moment, they just looked at each other, and Camila felt the air between them crackle with something new and dangerous. Then Sebastian cleared his throat and offered his arm. "Shall we?" The gala was a glittering affair held at the Fontainebleau, with Miami's elite gathered to support the children's hospital. Camila had attended similar events with her family before, but never as the wife of Sebastian Kane. The attention was overwhelming, photographers capturing their every move, society reporters asking about their whirlwind romance, business associates eager to curry favor with Sebastian through her. "Smile," Sebastian murmured as they posed for photos, his hand warm at the small of her back. "We're the picture of marital bliss." "I'm trying," she whispered back. "This is harder than I expected." "You're doing perfectly," he assured her, and something in his tone made her look up at him. His green eyes were warm, almost tender, as they met hers. The moment was interrupted by a voice behind them. "Sebastian Kane, I should have known you'd be here." They turned to find Ricardo Mendoza approaching, a man in his 50s with silver hair and cold eyes that Camila instinctively disliked. She recognized him from business magazines. He ran a competing tech company and had a reputation for ruthless tactics. "Ricardo," Sebastian said coolly, his arm tightening protectively around Camila's waist. "I didn't realize you supported children's charities." "Support all worthy causes," Ricardo replied with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "And you must be the lovely Mrs. Kane. Such a whirlwind romance. You two barely knew each other before the wedding, did you?" Camila felt Sebastian tense beside her, but she kept her smile in place. "When you know, you know," she said smoothly. "Sebastian swept me off my feet." "How romantic," Ricardo said, his tone suggesting he didn't believe a word. "Well, I'm sure. We'll be seeing more of each other soon." As he walked away, Sebastian's jaw was tight with anger. "What did he mean by that?" Camila asked. "Nothing good," Sebastian muttered. "Ricardo has been trying to discredit me for years. He's probably looking for any weakness he can exploit." The rest of the evening passed in a blur of forced smiles and careful conversations. But Camila couldn't shake the feeling that Ricardo Mendoza was watching them, looking for cracks in their facade. The storm breaks later that night. Back at the penthouse, Camila kicked off her heels and sank onto the couch with relief. The evening had been exhausting, and she was still recovering from her illness. "Would you like some wine?" Sebastian asked, loosening his bow tie. "That sounds perfect," she said, surprised by the offer. Sebastian rarely drank. He had never offered to share a drink with her before. He returned with 2 glasses of red wine and sat beside her on the couch, closer than he had ever sat before. The formal distance they usually maintained seemed to have evaporated somewhere during the evening. "He handled Ricardo well tonight," he said, handing her a glass. "He's going to be a problem." "What kind of problem?" Sebastian was quiet for a long moment, staring into his wine. "He's been investigating my personal life, looking for anything he can use against me. If he discovers the truth about our marriage, would destroy the Singapore deal, among other things." Sebastian looked at her then, his expression more open than she had ever seen it. "Camila, there's something you should know. About my past. About why I have trouble letting people close." Camila set down her wine glass, giving him her full attention. "You don't have to tell me anything you don't want to." "I want to," he said quietly. "I need to." He stood and walked to the window, looking out at the Miami skyline. "My father built Kane Industries from nothing, just like your grandfather built Rodriguez Construction. But he wasn't a good man. He was controlling, manipulative, emotionally abusive. My mother finally left when I was 16, but she left me behind." Camila's heart ached at the pain in his voice. "Sebastian, I swore I would never let anyone have that kind of power over me again," he continued. "Control became my armor. If I didn't let anyone close, they couldn't hurt me. It worked for years." "And now?" she asked softly. He turned to face her, his green eyes vulnerable in a way she had never seen before. "Now you're here, and I'm terrified because everything I've built, every wall I've constructed, it's all crumbling around you." The admission hung between them like a live wire. Camila stood slowly, crossing to where he stood by the window. "Maybe that's not such a bad thing," she whispered. "Camila," he said, her name a warning and a plea. "What if we stopped pretending?" she asked, stepping closer. "What if just for tonight we let ourselves feel what's been building between us?" "This is dangerous," Sebastian said, but his hands came up to frame her face. "If we cross this line, there's no going back." "I don't want to go back," Camila breathed. That was all the encouragement Sebastian needed. His lips crashed down on hers in a kiss that was nothing like their wedding day performance. This was desperate, hungry, months of suppressed desire and growing emotion pouring out between them. Camila melted against him, her hands fisting in his shirt as she pulled him closer. This was what she had been missing, what she had been craving without even realizing it. Sebastian's careful control shattered completely as he lifted her into his arms, carrying her toward his bedroom when hearts collide the next morning. Camila woke in Sebastian's arms, sunlight streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows. For a moment, she lay still, savoring the feeling of his body warm against hers, his breathing steady and peaceful in sleep. Then reality crashed back. They had crossed a line that changed everything. The careful boundaries of their contract marriage had been obliterated in a single night of passion. Sebastian stirred beside her, his green eyes opening to meet hers. For a moment, his expression was soft, almost loving.
"All right."
Then she watched as his walls began to rebuild themselves. "This was a mistake," he said quietly, sitting up and running his hands through his hair. The words hit Camila like a physical blow. "A mistake? We have a contract, Camila. Clear boundaries." Last night, he stood, pulling on his robe. "Last night can't happen again, so we're just going to pretend it didn't happen." She asked, hurt and anger warring in her chest. "It's for the best," Sebastian said, but he wouldn't meet her eyes. "We both knew what this arrangement was when we signed the contract." Camila stared at him, seeing the Ice King facade sliding back into place like armor. "You're a coward," she said quietly. That got his attention. His head snapped up, eyes flashing. "Excuse me?" You're a coward, she repeated, standing and wrapping the sheet around herself. You felt something real last night, we both did, and instead of facing it, you're hiding behind that contract like it's a shield. I'm being practical, Sebastian said coldly. Emotions complicate things. God forbid we actually feel something. Camila shot back. Heaven knows that might make you human. She started toward the door, then turned back. You know what, Sebastian? You're right. Your father did teach you something valuable. He taught you how to push away everyone who might actually care about you. The words struck home. Oh. She saw Sebastian flinch as if she had slapped him. But instead of apologizing, instead of admitting she was right, he just stood there in stony silence. I'm going to stay with my father for a few days, Camila said. I need some space to think. The price of pride 3 days later, Camila sat in her childhood bedroom at her father's house, staring at her phone. Sebastian had called twice and sent several text messages, but she hadn't responded to any of them. She needed time to process what had happened between them, to figure out how she felt about this man who had become so much more than a business arrangement. A knock at her door interrupted her thoughts. Camila, Roberto called. You have a visitor? She opened the door to find James Wilson, Sebastian's assistant and closest friend, standing in her father's modest living room. He was a kind man in his 30s, who had always treated her with genuine warmth. James, she said, surprised. What are you doing here? Sebastian sent me, he admitted. He's worried about you. He's worried about his contract, Camila said. Bitterly, no, James said firmly. He's worried about you. Camila, I've worked for Sebastian for 8 years. I've never seen him the way he's been since you left. He's barely sleeping. He can't concentrate. And yesterday, I found him staring at his phone for 20 minutes like he was trying to will you to call. Despite her anger, Camila felt her heart soften slightly. Then why doesn't he come here himself? Because he's terrified, James said simply. Sebastian has spent years building walls around his heart. You've knocked them all down and he doesn't know how to handle that. So instead he rebuilds them and pushes me away. It's what he knows, James said gently. But Camila, I've seen the way he looks at you, what you two have. It's real. Don't let his fear destroy it. That evening, Camila made her decision. She drove back to the penthouse, her heart pounding as the elevator carried her up to their home. She found Sebastian in his office, still in his work clothes, despite the late hour. You came back, he said, looking up from his laptop. His face was haggard, and she could see the truth of James's words in his exhausted eyes. We need to talk, Camila said, closing the office door behind her. Camila, I know, she interrupted. You've had your say. Now it's my turn. Sebastian leaned back in his chair, watching her warily. I love you, Camila said simply. I didn't plan to. I didn't want to, but I do. I think you love me too, even if you're too scared to admit it. Sebastian's carefully controlled expression cracked. Camila, I'm not asking you to throw away our contract, she continued. I'm asking you to modify it, to make it real. To stop hiding behind business arrangements and legal documents and admit that what we have is worth fighting for. Sebastian stood. Slowly, his hands shaking slightly. I don't know how to do this, he admitted. I don't know how to let someone in without losing myself. You don't have to lose yourself, Camila said, stepping closer. You just have to trust me. Trust us. For a moment, they stood there in silence, the weight of the decision hanging between them. Then Sebastian reached for her, pulling her in two. His arms, I love you too, he whispered against her hair. God help me, I love you so much it terrifies me. Then let's be terrified together, Camila said. Pulling back to look into his eyes, Sebastian cupped her face in his hands, his touch reverent. Are you sure about this? Once we tear up that contract, there's no going back to the way things were. I don't want to go back, Camila said. I want to go forward. It's with you. For real this time. Sebastian kissed her then, soft and sweet and full of promise. When they broke apart, his smile was radiant.
Wow.
Mrs. Kane, he said softly. Mr. Kane, she replied with a grin. I think we need to renegotiate our terms. I think we do too. But this time, the only clause that matters is forever. Epilogue. 2 years later. Morning sun streamed through the windows of the penthouse as Camila sat at the kitchen counter, reviewing architectural plans for her latest project, a community center in downtown Miami, funded by the Sebastian and Camila Kane Foundation. "Working already?" Sebastian asked, emerging from their bedroom in his running gear. "Your wife is a workaholic," Camila said, grinning as he dropped a kiss on top of her head. "My wife is brilliant and beautiful, and I love her desperately," Sebastian corrected, stealing a sip of her coffee. "Flatterer," she said. But her heart still skipped a beat when he said things like that. Their real marriage, the one that had grown from genuine love rather than legal contracts, was everything Camila had never dared to dream of. Sebastian had proven to be passionate, caring, and surprisingly romantic when he let his guard down. They had their challenges, but they faced them together. "By the way," Sebastian said, checking his watch, Diego called, "Got the fellowship." At Johns Hopkins, Camila squealed with delight. Her brother's medical career was flourishing, and she was so proud of everything he had accomplished. "And your father wants to know if we're still coming to dinner Sunday?" Sebastian continued. "Of course we are," Camila said. Carmen made him promise to make her famous arroz con pollo. Sebastian laughed, and the sound never failed to make her heart soar. The Ice King was long gone, replaced by a man who laughed freely, loved deeply, and wasn't afraid to show his emotions. "I have something for you," Sebastian said, producing a small wrapped box from his jacket pocket. "It's not my birthday," Camila protested, even as she accepted the gift. "I don't need a special occasion to give my wife presents," Sebastian said. Inside the box was a key, ornate and clearly very old. Camila looked at him in confusion. "It's the key to the house," Sebastian explained. "What house?" "The one I bought. It's the one where we're going to raise our children and grow old together. It has a big yard for dogs, a pool for entertaining, and a home office for a certain brilliant architect I know." Camila stared at him, tears pricking her eyes. "Sebastian, I know the penthouse is beautiful," he said quickly, "but it's not a home. I want us to have a real home, Camila, a place that's ours." She launched herself into his arms, kissing him soundly. "I love you," she said against his lips. "I love you, too," he replied, "more than I ever thought possible." As they held each other in the morning light, Camila reflected on the journey that had brought them here. What had started as a cold business transaction had become the greatest love story of her life. Sometimes the best things came from the most unexpected places. "Mrs. Kane?" Sebastian said softly. "Yes, Mr. Kane. Ready for our next adventure?" Camila smiled, thinking of the home they would build together, the family they would create, the life they would share. "Always," she said, "as long as it's with you. The end. You, the end. You, the end. You, the end."